This ain't just a channel, this is BBTV.
It's Truthful Tuesday. No sugarcoating, no polite lies, just the kind of honesty that makes people nod slowly and rethink their life decisions. Let's talk about it.
A boss be rising, BBTV's igniting, turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel road to the neon dream, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss be rising, sky ain't even the ceiling. When she hits go live, everybody feels it.
Welcome in, everybody. Good afternoon and happy daytime. This is Ask B. So I'm really glad you're here today, if you're here today, because this is one of those shows where we're not rushing anything, okay? We're not squeezing this into a tight little box. Not at all. We are settling in and doing this properly. And I want to start by talking to you straight about yesterday, okay? Because I don't like skipping days without context, and I don't like pretending that life doesn't interrupt creative plans, okay? Sometimes. So yesterday turned into one of those work days that you don't say no to. The kind where you look at the opportunity and go, yeah, this is too good to pass up. Even if it wrecks your schedule and your routine and your content calendar. And instead of trying to push through a foggy, half-powered show while mentally fried, I physically was just worn out from the morning. I made the call to handle business and come back today. Actually, sharp enough to give you the kind of conversation this community deserves. So that's exactly why today is stacked. As you see, Groundhog Petty Truthful Tuesday. Because we're not just picking up where we left off. We're making up for it, okay? We're doing these full stories, 3 of them, instead of 1. We're stretching the runtime just a little bit. I'm not going to go crazy here. But we are letting the chat breathe, and we're giving each situation the space it needs instead of speed running through complicated human behavior just to check a box. So if you carved out time for this today, you picked the right episode to do it. Now, for anybody new wandering in, welcome. You found Ask a B. This is where we take AITA-style stories or situations in AITA's Am I the A-hole? And we actually sit with them. We don't just toss a verdict and sprint away, okay? We look at motives, tone, timing, patterns, and the stuff people leave unsaid. We keep it honest and playful, of course, and we're not really judging here, okay? Sharp without being cruel, lively without turning into a therapy seminar. And then you all jump in with your takes because the chat is half the show. And you know what? I read everything. Speaking of which, hello, Jem. Hello. Akhtar, I think is your name, from Pakistan. Welcome in. Thank you for being here. So I do read everything. The spicy ones, the thoughtful ones, and wait, but what about this angle ones? Okay. I really want y'all to get into it. I would love it. Hello, Plus Sister. Good to see you. Happy you're here, honey. Oh, so the people who start on one side and then, they slowly gets persuaded halfway through the discussion, right? That's the fun part. That's the living room conversation energy that makes this feel like more than just me talking at the screen. Since we missed yesterday, I want this room loud today. Okay, so y'all give it to me. Ask your questions. I got you. I did a little bit. I was a little delayed today. It's still at noon, but yesterday I had something I had to deal with. Today I was a little bit late, so I just changed it to 1 o'clock. I'm trying to get back on track. Okay, so I want the roll call, okay? Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me if you're on lunch break, hiding in your car, multitasking at your desk, folding laundry with one earbud in and one kid on your hip, or fully clocked in emotionally and ready to judge strangers in a morally responsible and entertaining way. Okay. And while you're getting settled, go ahead and tap that like button for me, if you would please, because it actually matters more than people think, and it helps this room fill up so the conversation gets even better. And listen, today's lineup is doing emotional cross training because the three situations we've got could not be more different in tone, even though they're all built on the same question: was I wrong for that? The first one starts almost wholesome, logistical, and somehow derails into a family standoff over a canceled trip and a promised reimbursement. The second one drags us into marriage tension, jealousy. Okay, one earbud in and I'm in. Okay, honey, I love you. Thank you for being here. Let's see, jealousy, body comparison, and somebody unloading on extremely blunt opinion that may or may not have needed several layers of bubble wrap. Yeah. And the third one goes deep into blended families. Okay. Decades of trying to belong, being left on the edges of holidays and milestones, and finally telling a parent the truth after swallowing it for, wow, most of a lifetime. So this is not a light skim the surface episode. This is a sit down with your drink and actually listen episode. And I want to pace, or put your earbud in and listen in the background. That's it. I want to pace it so we can really hear each other outside instead of rushing into the loudest take in the room. Okay. Also, because it's daytime, I know half of you are doing this on the sly. So consider this your officially sanctioned mental break. Okay. This is your permission to slip to just put the email draft down for a second. Okay. Let the dishes soak. Stop doom scrolling and hang out while we collectively dissect other people's decisions. And if something hits a nerve for you today, just know you're not alone. Half the reason these stories blow up online is because everybody recognizes a version of themselves or, somebody they love somewhere in the mess. Huh, Sky? Thanks for being here. I appreciate you coming in. Please hit that like button for me. And hi, not huh. And that's part of what makes this interesting. At least I believe, because sometimes we come in thinking we're about to judge a stranger and leave realizing we've been gently roasted by proxy. I also want to say this, okay, before we dive in, because days like yesterday remind me why I don't take this space lightly. The fact that you all show up consistently, carve time out of real lives, real jobs, real stress, to come sit in this little digital room and talk through complicated human moments means a lot to me. So after this is over with, if you're watching the replay, remember that there are comments and I read them all and I will respond as long as they're worth the response. I don't respond to trolls, okay? You just put that there. But these are real life situations. And we're walking through them together. And, I'm here for you too. So I do have to step away for work or life. I don't want to come back and phone it in, right? I want to come back loaded with stories, energy, or enough runway to make it feel worth your while. So today is us over delivering a little, stretching the clock, letting the conversation wander where it needs to wander. And another thing, last thing I promise, since we've got 3 stories on deck, I'm going to be leaning on you even more, okay? More than usual. Because I want the back and forth. I want the disagreements that stay respectful, please. I want the people in the chat gently side-eyeing each other with logic instead of pitchforks, okay? Be respectful. That's all I'm asking. I want you who start typing absolutely not and then delete it halfway through because someone else made a good point, okay? I'm here and got my boots on. Let me know for the trolls. Yes, sis. That's my girl right there. She takes care of me. So that's the good stuff. That's what makes these shows feel alive instead of scripted. So don't be shy today, okay? Jump in early, jump in often. And if you miss part of the story because someone walked into your office or your kid needed something or your boss suddenly remembered you existed, don't worry. We're pacing this slow enough that you'll be able to catch up, I promise. So take a breath. Get comfortable in your chair. Adjust the volume just a tad. Stretch your neck. We know I've got a big mouth, okay? Unclench your jaw too, because some of you kind of feels like you came in a little stressed already. And listen, settle into the fact that for the next while, your only real responsibility is to decide whether strangers on the internet behave reasonably or completely lost the plot. Because let me tell you what, our first situation involves a family trip, okay, that should have been simple and memory making. And instead, it turned into a canceled plan, a financial promise, and a whole lot of awkward follow up. And if I know this room the way I think I do, okay, the verdicts are about to start flying before I even finish reading this first line. Let me grab it. All right. Yes, you need to not do that, please. Thank you. Right there. See, I'm totally getting it. I promise. All righty. Let's see here. Get that in there. And okay. So here we go with our first story. Let me get over here to the side. This way. Okay. Hello, where are you? There you are. All right, so we have our first story. Am I the a-hole who requested payment for a canceled Groundhog Day trip? Yes, this is the Groundhog part. Yay, happy Groundhog Day. We got 6 more weeks. That sucks because Texas is bipolar weather. I'm telling you, it sucks. All righty. So my father is really into Groundhog Day. And this year, my brother and I decided to make the effort, plan a trip to drive to Punxsutawney, PA from Ohio for the holiday on February 2nd. It's determined that I should be in charge of booking the hotel and van for the trip, as we are 3 adults and 2 boys, 6 and 13 years old. I sent out the email confirmations for both the van and hotel about a week ago, and did not hear anything until yesterday, where my dad decides to book another hotel in Indiana, PA, which is an hour closer to the event. This would make it easier, pardon me, on the younger boy to not have to wake up as early. But unfortunately, the occupancy limit for that room is 4 people. The occupancy limit on the hotel in Pittsburgh is 5. So we would not have to break any rules to stay there. Once I brought this fact up to my dad, what, y'all, I'm sorry. Really? They will charge you for an extra. Give me a break. Okay. Once I brought this fact up to my dad, he gets frustrated and decides he wants to cancel the trip. Okay. Really? All right. So I was really looking forward to the bonding with my family, and I had already requested a day of PTO off from work. Okay. Once I brought this fact up to my dad, he flippantly says, I'll pay you for your day's pay. Pardon me. I regrettably accepted the offer and considered the matter closed. Today, when I tried to collect the agreed payment, he is trying to back out. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole for booking the hotel with the correct occupancy and attempting to collect payment that was promised? Give me your worst. Oh, pardon me. I don't know why I've got an itch now. All right, y'all. What are you thinking about that? Because that's, well, first of all, it was Groundhog Day, so hopefully they're not repeating that again. I know, it was stupid. Anyway, you're not the a-hole here, okay? And I want to slow this down and really live in the behavior instead of racing to a verdict. Because this isn't about a hotel room or a van or even a fuzzy little weather prophet. It's about responsibility, timing, and people saying things in the heat of the moment, okay? And then pretending they never said them once the emotional temperature drops, I guess. And from the jump, my goodness. From the jump, you were operating inside the role you weren't assigned, which matters because you didn't hijack the plan. You didn't freelance logistics. You didn't make a unilateral call for fun, right? You were explicitly put in charge of booking the travel for a group that included 3 adults and 2 children. And that means your job was to make choices that were legal, realistic, and workable for the whole group, correct? Not the most convenient for one person in isolation. And when you did exactly that, sent confirmations, locked in a hotel that could actually house everyone without sneaking people past a front desk, and lined up a van that fit the head count. Come on, you were being the responsible adult in the room, which is rarely glamorous, obviously, and almost never think, right? But it's absolutely the backbone of any group trip that doesn't collapse into chaos. The friction didn't start because you made some wild choice, okay? It started because someone else made a parallel decision after the fact. Booked something smaller without looping in the group. I'm sorry, and then got frustrated when reality showed up wearing a badge, and that said occupancy limit, okay? That's where things tend to go sideways in families, I think. Because instead of pausing and saying, okay, let's problem solve this, or what are our other options, the emotional reaction kicks in and suddenly the whole event is being scrapped. Okay, come on. What do I say? What do I always say? If you're new here, this is it. Don't react. Don't react. Don't react. Don't react. Breathe for a minute before you do, because you're going to, obviously, but everything is about reaction. Just as soon as you get an attitude, it comes out in your words, in the way you spit them out, or however you do when you're mad, okay? Don't react on that. Walk away, take a deep breath, think about it, and then walk back and then react in a much calmer way if you have to. Okay? Not dramatic. Dramatic escalation when there were clearly still multiple off-ramps. Okay? That's what that is. They were available. Why didn't you? And that escalation, it really matters because it directly impacted you in a concrete, measurable way. You had already taken PTO. You had mentally committed to the trip, and you were looking forward to the family, right? Lots of bonding. And that emotional investment isn't nothing. But more importantly, the PTO is a real cost, right? Time you can't just slide back into your pocket once it's been approved. And when you raised that practical consequence, you weren't being manipulative, okay? You were stating a fact. the response you got wasn't, let me think about that, or I don't know, let's figure out another solution. It was an immediate, casual, financial offer, a sentence that didn't come with qualifiers, timelines, any conditions. Just, I'll pay you for your day, which is adult language. In adult language is a complete thought, okay? When you accepted it, you weren't extorting anyone. You were agreeing to the remedy that had just been processed or proposed, pardon me, to offset a loss you hadn't caused. Sounds fair. And that distinction is really critical, okay? Because people love to rewrite history later as if the other person demanded money out of nowhere. But that's not what happened here. You simply said yes. And now the attempt to back out isn't about confusion. It's about the discomfort with the consequences of words that were spoken to freely in the moment. That's what we do. And here's where Truthful Tuesday energy really kicks in, because a lot of family conflicts aren't about money at all. They're about pride and control. And you know what? The internal flinch people feel when they realize they escalated something way too fast. And now there's a price tag to attached. And instead of saying, you know what, I spoke too quickly, or I shouldn't have canceled like that, or even, can we renegotiate? The instinct is to quietly hope the other person drops it, which puts you in the awkward position of either eating the loss to keep the peace or being labeled difficult for following up on something that was already agreed to. And that's a trap a lot of people fall into, especially with parents, because come on, chasing a parent for reimbursement feels emotionally backwards, doesn't it? It does, even when you're technically in the right, but right is right. And adulthood is supposed to mean that your words carry weight no matter who you're talking to. Now, I'm also not pretending that families operate like legal contracts, okay? Because they don't. And there is always a human layer here. Your dad may have realized the cost and panicked, or cooled off and thought the whole thing was being blown out of proportion, or simply didn't expect you to actually follow through on collecting, which is its own messy category of communication failure. But none of those internal processes erase the fact that you relied on what he said. You relied on what your father said. And reliance is the key word, because you didn't change your behavior after the offer in some sneaky way. The trip was already canceled. The PTO was already taken. The loss had already occurred. The only thing that changed was that a solution was proposed and accepted. And gosh, backing out afterward, I think that shifts the burden onto you for something you didn't create. Now, I want to linger on that point for just a second, please, because sometimes, my goodness, people try to frame situations like this as, well, you didn't have to accept, or it was just something I said. But adults don't get to treat financial promises as emotional confetti once you put them into the air, okay? Somebody is allowed to pick them up and say, okay, let's do that. And the socially graceful move, if you regret it later, isn't to pretend it never happened. It's to reopen the conversation honestly. And that hasn't happened yet, has it? No, what's happening instead is a quiet retreat, which leaves you looking like the aggressor when all you're doing is following the timeline that was set in motion by someone else. And yes, could this have gone differently at multiple points? Of course it could. Of course it could. Group trips are basically a masterclass in how miscommunication multiplies. And maybe there was room to explore splitting into 2 rooms, or changing hotels, or rebooking closer, or finding another workaround before hitting the cancel button. But those are alternative universes, right? And in the universe we're in, the sequence matters. You were assigned the task. You completed it responsibly. The plan was changed without coordination. The event canceled. A reimbursement was offered, and now that reimbursement is being questioned. Why? And that sequence is why you're not the villain here, okay? What I also want to call out, and I know I said I was almost done. Hi, Des. Good to see you, honey. So what I also want to call out is that I know, I'm trying. That you didn't immediately go scorched earth or run to the internet demanding justice. You tried to collect what had been agreed upon privately, which is the calmest possible version of this follow-up. And the fact that it's turning into a standoff now is what makes it uncomfortable. Not anything you did, okay? And if we're being really honest, this is one of those moments where families test whether they actually respect each other as adults, because it's easy to brush off commitments when you're dealing with a child, right? But when everybody involved is grown, the same standards apply, I think. My opinion, I'm not a professional. Even when it's awkward, though, okay? So my ruling stays exactly where it started. You're not wrong, okay, for expecting someone to honor what they offered. You're not wrong for being frustrated that a canceled trip cost you time off. And you're definitely not wrong for following up rather than silently absorbing the hit, okay, to keep the peace. No, you're not wrong. If your dad doesn't want to pay, the mature move on his side is to say so plainly, right? And explain why. Not to act like the agreement never existed. Because that is how small logistical disagreements metastasize, okay, into long-running family resentments that get trotted out every February like a seasonal tradition. And nobody wants that, right? Least of all over a rodent with a top hat. Seriously. So in classic AITA terms, you're in the clear here. And the real Truthful Tuesday takeaway is that accountability, it doesn't stop at the front door of your own family. It actually matters more there. This has to be a scripted AI pre-recorded video. No, it isn't Crazy Fox Lover, but I appreciate you checking it out. Thank you for being here. Okay. Now then, we're going to go back to the next. Pardon me. All righty. Here's our second story. Let's see here. I shall wait until I make a mistake. You'll see. Ugh, for real. All right. Okay. Now then. Story number 2. Am I the a-hole for calling wife petty and hateful? Probably. That's the wrong name thing. What? For real? There it is. Sorry, y'all. Okay, look. Am I the a-hole for calling wife petty and hateful? My wife was always an extremely thin woman. She is in her late 30s now and weighs more than she ever has. But she carries it heavily in her hips and butt. Okay, isn't that the thing now? She is An attractive woman whose very employment is, partially reliant on her physical appearance, not sex work. Nope. But she has a friend who is about a decade younger. Y'all pardon that word. I'm supposed to take that one out. Anyway, when they met the friend, yep, that got me distracted, that word. I'm sorry, y'all. When they met, the friend was overweight. In their years of friendship, her friend has become devoted to physical sport, including the one my wife introduced to her thing. And as a result, she has lost weight, gained muscle, and looks very good. She too carries her weight in hips, butt, and thighs. The other day, her friend came over to hang out. She talked about how much better her times have gotten and how much she dedicates to improving in various aspects. She has creative and intellectual endeavors. The two have a lot in common. As soon as the friend leaves, wife unleashes barrage of shit talk about how the friend is a poser, a wannabe, a try hard, how she's too skinny, she's not. The girl has visible abs and looks very fit. She even said real women have curves, but they both have the same body type. Uh-oh. Right, Des? That's what I'm thinking too. So after hearing her shit talk her friend to death, I had lost it and told her she was being petty, mean, hateful, and small. Oh, good for you. Good for you, sir. I told her that I love her body, but if she's uncomfortable with her weight, she talks about it constantly, then to do something about it, then to do something about it. I've seen her working out. She puts in half the effort of her friend. There you go. Quits readily, makes excuses, and has even overblown medical conditions, only to lose all symptoms as soon as she gets home. Of course she did. Of course she does. She claims to be an artist, but she spends most of her time on her phone. She claims to be a pro at all the things her friend is actively practicing, but she doesn't do any of those things and hasn't for most of the decade that we've been together. I don't mind these things, but this girl is a good person and a good friend and doesn't deserve to be treated that way. Okay, even behind her back, especially by her best friend. My wife doesn't work more than a few days a month and brings in almost no income. If she wanted to pursue anything, she is free to do it. But she instead chooses to complain and tear others down. Pardon me. I've been staying in my office the last 2 nights. Ruh-roh. Wait. I think I needed to go to the next one. Okay. So, am I the a-hole for speaking up about this? I don't know if this is a typical behavior for female friendships. There's 2 edits. I'm going to put those up too first because they're important. Okay, edit number 1. I love my wife. We have a very straightforward manner of speaking to one another. Our relationship is not in trouble over this. It is simply an argument. That might mean that for you, sir. But she's a woman. She's holding a grudge. In the back of her mind, she may not ever say anything about it, but in the back of her mind, she is. And if you're a woman that says you don't, you're lying. Okay, I am looking for advice on how to proceed. I do feel like an a-hole, but I feel like she is, or I feel she is being unreasonably cruel. I'm going to save my verdict on this one, okay? Because we have a second edit, of course. I think I may be too harsh, or I think maybe I was too harsh. I do not hate my wife. I am just going to talk to her. Thank you for the perspective. Yeah. Everybody kind of earns a side eye in this situation, if you ask me. And no, you didn't, but I'm going to tell you anyway. What? I know. First, he's like standing his ground, and I'm sorry, I agree with him at first, but these edits were like, I want to say this without getting in trouble with YouTube. He's kitty whipped. Yeah, that's what I'm going with. And it's got to be golden to put up with that kind of petty. Sorry. Yes, we had our groundhog. This is our petty. Lord, help me. Help them. Help us all, okay? Everybody kind of earns that side eye. I can't lie here, okay? That's not me doing the dramatic gavel slam either. That's me saying this is one of those arguments where good intentions, bruised egos, and terrible delivery all piled into the same room, and nobody walked out smelling like roses. No. Because on one side, you've got a spouse venting in a way that crossed out of I'm insecure and hurting and into I'm unloading bitterness onto someone who isn't here to defend themselves. Okay. Facts. Sorry. It's not cute. It's not classy and not how you treat a person you call a best friend. Even when jealousy is tapping you on the shoulder, whispering spicy little thoughts. But on the other side, you responded by going full character assassination, TED Talk, stacking observations about her effort level, her hobbies, her health, her income, and her follow through in one big emotionally nuclear bundle. And you detonated it right in the middle of an already sensitive moment. Listen. Some of what you're saying might contain kernels of truth, okay? But truth delivered with a flamethrower is still a flamethrower, okay? When someone is clearly spiraling about their own body, aging, comparison, and relevance, calling them petty, hateful, small, and then listing all the ways they fall short compared to the person they're already insecure about is basically pouring gasoline on an insecurity fire, okay? Take a breath. Just take a breath. Acting surprised when the room gets hot, okay? Now, where I'm firmly not letting her off the hook is the post-hangout trash talk, okay? Because, listen, tearing down a friend's looks, work ethic, creativity, ambitions, the second they leave the room is not just venting. That's mean-spirited coping, okay? And it usually shows up when someone is scared that they're falling behind, scared they're losing something that used to define them, okay? Or scared that admiration is shifting away from them and towards someone else. And instead of saying, I feel weird about how I compare myself to her lately, they swing for the cheap seats and start narrating a roast nobody asked for, okay? Which does not make them evil, but does make the behavior ugly. So where you stepped wrong is that, listen, instead of naming the behavior, hey, it doesn't sit right with me when you tear her down like that. It feels unfair and it makes me uncomfortable. You went straight into prosecuting her entire lifestyle. And that's a different conversation entirely, not for today. Because now it's not about how she talked about her friend. It's about whether you respect her, okay? Whether you respect her, whether you think she's lazy, whether you secretly resent her contributions or lack thereof, whether you've been keeping score. And that's why this escalated so fast, because once someone senses they're not just being challenged on a comment, but being evaluated as a person, the walls go up. The defense came out. And nobody's listening anymore. They're just preparing closing arguments. I actually think your edits tell on you a little in a good way. In a good way. I said in a good way, okay? Because backing up and admitting you might have been too harsh is exactly the pivot people make when the adrenaline wears off. And they realize, okay, I was aiming at the behavior and accidentally hit the whole person. And that doesn't mean your discomfort was wrong. It means the delivery overshot the target by several zip codes. And that usually is where these fights live. Not in whether something should have been said, but in how it went and when it was said. Okay, if you want to proceed in a way that doesn't turn this into a reoccurring loop, the next move isn't doubling down on the comparison list or acting like she's on trial for crimes against productivity. Saying something closer to, when you went after your friend like that, it made me uncomfortable because it felt cruel. And I know you've been frustrated about your body and your goals lately. So I'm wondering what's really going on under that. That's not hard. It's not hard. Because that keeps the spotlight on the behavior you objected to, while also acknowledging that insecurity is probably driving the bus right now. It's true. And for her part, if she's being honest with herself, she's got to own that envy and comparison don't magically become harmless just because they happen in private. And that speaking viciously about someone who's supposedly close to her, yeah, it's not a great look no matter how bruised she's feeling. And if she's really unhappy with where she's at physically, creatively, professionally, then that's something to address directly instead of using somebody else that as an emotional scratching post. Okay. What I'm not buying is the idea that this is some mysterious female friendship thing, because it's not. Me and my bestie, no, nothing like that. But we don't sugarcoat stuff either, right? We just don't, because that would be almost criminal in a best friend relationship. We tell it like it is. And we respect each other more because of that. Seriously. So, alrighty. I'm going to go ahead and let that one be finished because I need a break. So, if you don't mind, I shall return shortly. Please forgive me. I do not have the ninja going. It's just been a couple of days, you know. I'll see about getting back on that. Nobody's really watching it, so maybe I'll just do something else. You know me. I do a little bit of everything. I'll mess it up and go and fix it. That's so you don't have to. I'll be right back. Thanks, guys.
She came from the quiet storms, built a fire from the ground, turned a whisper to a warning. Now her voice shakes the town. Every setback was a lesson. Every doubt became a key, unlocking something bigger. That's the rise of boss B. When the lights go low, her A boss be rising, BBTV's igniting. Turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel roads to the neon dreams, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss be rising, sky ain't even the ceiling. When she hits go live, everybody feels it. She's the queen of the comeback, the storm in the stream, crafting stories out of heartbeats, making visions out of dreams. Got thunder in the hustle, got a voice that cuts clean. Every mic she touches turns the power unseen. So let further spin the numbers, let the views rise slow or fast. Boss beat doesn't measure wins by echoes of the past. This moment is a pivot, this season's history. Bow down to the founder of the BBTV dynasty. A boss be rising, BBTV's igniting. Turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel roads to the neon dreams, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss be rising, sky ain't even the ceiling. When she hits go live, everybody feels it. She's got fire in the head, it's got truth in the frame. Got a heart that won't retire and a gift you can't name. Every loop, every letter, every dream she sets free. It's a love note to the world sign, Boss B. And the world keeps watching as the numbers climb, but she's counting all the moments, not the dollar signs. From the late night grind to the daylight scene, she's building something bigger than the algorithm's dream. Boss be rising, BBTV shining. Her story's rewriting, a legacy in real time. Boss be rising, BBTV's igniting. Turn the volume up, yeah, the whole world's invited. From the gravel roads to the neon dreams, she built an empire out of broken wings. Boss be rising, sky ain't even the ceiling. When she hits go live, everybody feels it. BBTV, where the stories breathe. BBTV, where the dreamers believe. Boss be rising, watch her take her place. This is BBTV, this is her grace.
Join Boss B for Ask a Bee Monday through Friday, 12 noon Central Standard Time and Jukebox Journey every Saturday, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time.
All right. Welcome back. Here we go. This is our third and final story. It's a little bit longer, so we're going to be here for a little bit, but I wanted to make up for yesterday. I want to tell you also, too, I really appreciate y'all being patient with my scheduling here lately. It hasn't been as consistent as I would like, but I'm doing my best, y'all. For those of you out that are stuck with me, hey, I love you for it. Absolutely love you for it. All righty, so our third story. Let's try this one out here. I think it's this one. Nope. Nope. Really? It's this one, silly. I'll get this one of these days. I hope. I really hope. All right, so our third story. This one's a little bit longer, and well, I'll say my answer is a little bit longer on this one too, but it needs to be said, right? All right. Am I the a-hole for telling my father the truth about not feeling like part of his family? Okay. I am 54, female. Okay. Your daddy must be young. Have one brother in his 30s and four sisters, all between the ages of 20 and 35. Was invited to my sister's wedding. Now, a few years back, I got to participate in my brother's wedding. I made the cakes. Oh, how nice. I was very proud to do it. Aw, that's cool. Okay. My siblings are all half siblings from two previous marriages. Yes, he's been married 4 times. When it came time for my oldest sister to get married, I was so excited. She used to call herself by my name. That's so cute. That is adorable. She was even the flower girl in my wedding. Aw. I have tried over the years to get close to them, but they just live very different lives. Yeah. My mom and dad were married young. I was only 4 when they divorced. Ouch. My father's second marriage, he had 3 more. Okay. I was old enough to spend a lot of time playing mother hen. Oh, yay. Okay. And I was so happy for it being my mother's. Oh, I was so happy for it being my mother's only child. I think they mean just because they were her mother's only child. Never mind. I'm going crazy. I really have tried to be there for all the events: Christmas, Thanksgiving, birthdays, and any days. So here comes the invitation for my sister. Maybe a week before the actual wedding, I get a phone call. No, not an actual invitation sent by the bride. A text from my stepmother complaining I don't answer my text and that the wedding is in a week. Oh, yikes. They want me there. Okay. Of course, and yet again, I ignored the attitude because they don't know me or my schedule or that I have literally no time for anything. So I make the effort to be there. Okay. It was a beautiful place in wedding. After the actual ceremony in the sweltering heat, they started up taking pictures of the family. My husband took our granddaughter and walked off, and I stepped up as the photographer. The photographer is starting to take pictures of the whole family. I'm standing right behind the photographer as he snapping. My dad and my sisters waved at me and smiled, not waving for me to come be in the picture, just simple hi and a smile. Ouch. This one's burning me already. I wanted to step up but couldn't get there, and no one was trying to get me there either. I mean, even cousins that I grew up with that were favorites, but not me. Man, y'all, you got me rocking on this one. I'm going to get mad. Okay. And that really kicked me in the gut. Of course it did. Then I left. I said nothing. I just left. I don't hear from him or any of them for a while. The following Thanksgiving, I heard and said nothing. So no invite, as always. Then 3 days before Christmas, I get a message. Dad is having back surgery on Christmas Eve. We won't be having much of a Christmas. I said, okay, tell my dad I love him. And that was it. I never heard if he was okay. I sent a message a week later to my dad telling him I love him and I hope he's okay. Nothing for 2 days. Okay, he's had surgery. I get it, but he's also home already. Fast forward to last Christmas. I get a message. Your dad had another back surgery 3 weeks ago. And what? 3 weeks ago. Okay, she's 54. Her dad can't be that young. And he's having back surgeries every year. Really? 3 weeks? Okay. And he would really like to see you all this year. Well, guess who couldn't make it? Okay. Now I'm conflicted. When asked why I told him the truth about how he makes me and mine, because yes, my children feel the same. Ooh. Feel like a third wheel every time we go there or are there. My son did go, but because we want my son's daughter to know them. Regardless, it will be her choice to make if she spends time with them. Okay. I applaud you for that. Okay. And now I haven't heard anything at all since. Am I the a-hole for not staying quiet, even though has always been like this in some way? Okay. So I guess you went ahead and told him how you felt. Wow. Yeah. I'm going to bring that one down because I didn't even go through the other ones, but it's fine. There's so many things I want to say right now, and I'm just not sure what to say. That is a whole melodrama going on there. I mean, you're not the a-hole, okay, for finally saying something. And I want to sit in that for a long minute, okay, because what you're describing, it isn't a one-off awkward moment. It's a decades-long drip of being peripheral, of showing up anyway, of swallowing disappointment politely, of, making yourself small so the room doesn't get uncomfortable. And people underestimate how exhausting that is until the day they realize they've been carrying it for 30 or 40 years or 54 years, and their arms are shaking. This isn't about one photo at one wedding. It's about the cumulative weight of being the one who rearranges schedules, drives in heat, keeps the peace, ignores tone-deaf messages, shows up without formal invitations, accepts silence on holidays, sends "tell dad I love him" text into the void. Pardon me, hold on. I'm sorry, my dog was hacking up along, and that's not something everybody needs to hear. Okay, so waits days later for replies after surgeries and still keeps the door cracked open because Hope is stubborn and family history runs deep. And I guarantee you, if you're anything like me, your father is where you got the stubbornness from. So that photo moment, it didn't hurt because of the camera. It hurt because it crystallized a pattern. Everyone assembled, everyone counted, and you hovering behind the lens like an afterthought. I mean, figuratively, I'm assuming you couldn't get around to get over there because the photographer was in the way and you didn't want to jump in the middle of it and mess up the picture or something, because he was not going to stop. He's a photographer. He's getting paid. He's going to give you as many pictures as possible, right? In my opinion. So you hovering behind the lens like an afterthought, when nobody moved, nobody waved you forward, nobody stopped the process to make sure you were included. I mean, because it sounds to me like you're the oldest of the group. And no, I'm not saying just because you're the oldest, you should be, I don't know, worshipped or looked at differently. What I'm saying is it sounds like they don't even look at you as if you're one of them, Or they would have said, hey, wait, my sister's not in here, or my daughter's not in, whatever, right? Instead, they just look at you, wave, and smile. Your body clocked the message before your brain could, okay? And before it could soften it. And sometimes the quietest exclusions land the loudest, don't they? What really stands out to me is that you didn't explode at the wedding. You go, girl. You didn't cause a scene. Your sister still had a perfect day. You didn't confront anyone under a white arch in the heat. You just left, which is the move of someone who has spent a lifetime choosing grace over disruption, even when it costs them. And then months pass with no outreach, no Thanksgiving invite, a clipped Christmas update routed through other people. Wow. Medical news delivered without follow-up, or delivered 3 weeks later. Oh my God, that slow realization that the emotional labor is almost entirely traveling in one direction. And that does something to a person. It teaches them to brace, to lower expectations, to pre-grieve gatherings before they happen. And still, look, still, when your dad said he wanted to see you, you didn't respond with cruelty or a list of grievances. You responded with honesty about how being around them makes you and your kids feel like a third wheel. That matters. Because you didn't weaponize the past. You named the impact. And people sometimes confuse honesty with hostility when they've gotten used to silence benefiting them. Now, could staying quiet have preserved surface peace? Sure. But at that cost, what cost, really? Because silence isn't neutral when it keeps one person swallowing hurt year after year. Silence is just pain with good manners. And the fact that your children independently feel the same thing is blinking the red light that this isn't imagined or oversensitive. It's something they've absorbed too, which means you weren't just speaking for yourself in that moment. You weren't. You did what you always should do. You played the mom card first. Because it's more important than you. As is everybody else, right? Tell me I'm wrong. I guarantee you I'm not. You are finally articulating what the whole branch of your family tree has been quietly experiencing, and the fallout, radio silence afterwards. But it doesn't automatically make you wrong, okay? Because sometimes when you stop cushioning people from the truth, the first reaction is to distance, not dialogue, especially if the truth disrupts a narrative where everyone believes they've been perfectly fair. What I will say, very gently but clearly, is that telling the truth doesn't obligate anyone else to respond well for it or to it. And that's one of the hardest parts of finally speaking up. You do it hoping for recognition and repair, maybe even an awkward but honest conversation. And sometimes what you get instead is withdrawal. It is. It is. Which can feel like confirmation of the very thing you said out loud. That swings in a whole new direction. Still, the alternative, going back to swallowing it? No, showing up cheerfully to rooms where you feel invisible. Teaching your kids by example that love means tolerating erasure. Would have cost you more in the long run, don't you think? And I don't think that's what thankful energy is actually about. I think gratitude isn't pretending things don't hurt. It's valuing yourself enough to stop participating in dynamics that quietly break your heart. Your son going so his daughter can have the option of connection was generous, not spiteful. Okay? No. And you didn't forbid relationships or slam doors. You simply chose not to keep subjecting yourself to something that consistently leaves you feeling small. And that's not cruelty. That's boundaries forming late in life after a long career of endurance. A career, yes. that long, yeah, career. Could there still be a version of this where you and your father talk again? Yes. And if that happens, the most powerful posture isn't accusation, it's steadiness. I love you and I want to be a part of your life, but when we're excluded or only contacted around emergencies, it hurts. And I can't pretend it doesn't. Because that keeps the door open without crawling through it on your knees. Even if that conversation never comes, you're not obligated to keep performing cheerfulness for people who consistently treat you like an optional attachment. The core truth here, okay? You didn't lash out. You didn't insult. You didn't rewrite history. You told him how his behavior lands on you and your children after years of trying to be close. And that is not being an a-hole, okay? Not in my book. That's being a tired, hopeful, finally honest human being who decided that being invisible hurts more than being quite ever protected, right? And I want to add one more thing here. Just one last layer. I promise it is the last layer. I'm long-winded. You wouldn't be here if you didn't know that. Okay. I want to add one layer. Because sometimes when people finally name a long-standing wound, the people on the other side, they genuinely don't realize how deep it goes, especially in blended families where timelines, loyalties, and habits calcify over decades without anyone ever pausing to audit them. It's true. And that doesn't excuse the exclusion, but it does help explain why your honesty, well, it may have landed like an earthquake instead of a conversation. And when people are confronted with the idea that someone has felt peripheral for years, the first impulse is often defensiveness or retreat, rather than curiosity and silence. Sorry, dog butt. That, and pardon me, silence you're experiencing now could be less about punishment and more about people not knowing how to engage without admitting uncomfortable things about their own patterns. That said, it still isn't on you to keep absorbing that discomfort, especially for them. And if any future dialogue opens up, the most constructive frame is staying anchored in impact rather than inventory. What moments like the wedding photo, the missing holiday invitations, and the one-way updates around medical events made you feel, because that keeps the focus on lived experience instead of turning it into a courtroom brief, right? And it also models for your kids what it looks like to speak honestly without becoming cruel, to set boundaries without burning everything down. and to leave the door unlocked without standing in the cold, waiting for someone to notice you're there. I think that's great. Hold on. Sorry, guys. Okay, my goodness. Sorry. Puppy dogs. I can't do anything else with them. They're crazy. All right, so I am going to go ahead and roll on out of here. But before we do, I just want to say this. Okay, this was one of those shows where you could feel the room working because we covered 3 completely different situations, and somehow every single one circled back to the same core question of how people handle conflict when emotions get loud, pride gets involved, and timing is terrible. And I love days like this because, you all don't just throw verdicts and disappear, okay? You actually wrestle with the gray areas. You change your minds in real time. You point out things other people missed. And you remind each other that human behavior is rarely neat, even when the internet wants it to be. So thankful. I'm so thankful for all of you for being here. Thank you. So thank you for bringing thoughtful takes, playful side eyes, and just enough spice to keep it interesting without turning it ugly. We had canceled trips and promised money, and we had jealousy and blunt honesty inside a marriage, and we had decades-long family dynamics finally being named out loud. And if nothing else today proves, it's that silence, sarcasm, and explosions, and I was just being honest, all have very different consequences when even when they come from understandable places. And the fun of this show is never just picking a winner. It's watching the chat unpack when they're here to unpack, and the comments later, and the why behind people's choices, and asking ourselves what we might have done differently in the same spot. Because let's be real, half of the time, the lesson sneaks up on you 5 minutes after you typed your verdict, right? I really appreciate you all carving out time in the middle of your day to hang here, especially knowing a lot of you are multitasking, sneaking listens at work, or taking a middle break when you probably need it more than you realized. And it's days like today where we stretch the format, stack the stories a little bit, and let the conversation breathe. They're exactly why I love doing this with you. So if you just wandered in late or had to dip out halfway through, don't worry. The replay will be there waiting for you. And the chat is always worth scrolling back through, because some of you drop wisdom like you didn't even mean to. Make sure you're subscribed, please. And hey, please consider becoming a member. Make sure notifications are on so you don't miss the next one. It will be tomorrow, very hopefully at noon, okay? If not, it will be 1 o'clock. If not, I will post that I'm not going to be here, I promise you. And if you've got a story that's been living rent-free in your head and you want it on the table for future episodes, you know where to send it, right? If you don't, I promise you, I'm about to show you. So, because we've got plenty more Truthful Tuesdays to come, petty lanes, thankful lanes, and all the emotional cross-training in between coming your way. And I promise, we'll keep the tone the same. Sharp but kind, playful but honest, and always interested in what you think, okay? All right, go hydrate, go finish whatever you were pretending to work on, and go text the friend you were silently siding with in one of these stories. And you know what? I'll see you next time right here on Ask a Bee. Y'all hang out just a second, because I've got a little bit more. Just promos. Love you. Thanks for being here.
I want to take a minute to shout out TuberChat. If you're a creator who's tired of surface level advice, Yet says, and actually wants to understand how YouTube works, that's the space. It's real conversations with real creators who are in the trenches, building channels, testing ideas.
No posturing, no gatekeeping, no fake guru energy, just people sharing what's working, what isn't, and why. If you're serious about growing, learning, and not doing this alone, check out Tuber Chat. The link is in the description. If you're enjoying this show, subscribing is the easiest way to support what's being built here on BBTV. You'll see the join button right next to subscribe. No pressure, no expectations, just an option for people who want to support the channel in a real way. We're live weekdays at 12 p.m. Central, and each day has its own focus. Same honesty, same voice, just different conversations depending on the day. And if you've got a story you want to share, send it in. Anonymous is always fine.
Boss be right.